This is 89.7 FM. Broadcasting live 24 hours a day. 89.7 FM.
CEO himself.
Right.
In the building.
Right. Own it. Yeah, own it. Own it. I mean, how exciting has it been?
Yeah, it's been, you know, I started doing this job at the end of 2007. And it was in the festival in 2008 that I was driving. I actually had to stop my car. I just thought, I'm having so much fun. This shouldn't be legal. This shouldn't be a job. Of course, it's not always fun, but it is a cool job, and it's awesome. I love it, and it's a great event.
I know. What can we expect this year?
You know, I don't know, and that is precisely what makes the festival so cool. You know, with 700 things on the program, yeah, we can look through the program and I can say this will probably do quite well, and I'm looking forward to seeing that because this is my taste or whatever. But finally, once festival starts, this beast that we've given birth to just takes a life of its own. And there's these sleeper hits, these things that you don't expect to do well, or on paper don't look like they should do well, but they just come completely from left field and just blow everyone away. A couple of years back, an example of that, I don't know if you ever seen Butcher, Gemma Khan's work. She then came back last year and did We Didn't Come to Hell for the Croissants, and she's come back with a new work this year. It's the most amazing piece of theatre, and it's the most unusual piece of theatre. She's adopted a Japanese style of storytelling called kamishibai, and she's drawn these paintings. She's made these drawings and paintings, and she tells a story and illustrates them with these paintings that she shows as she's talking. And then you think, okay, that sounds interesting, but it's not like going to blow me away. But the quality of performance and the quality of writing, it's just become one of those smash hits. And then she goes and performs it in Joburg or Cape Town, or I've seen it in Amsterdam, I've seen it around the world as she's toured this work, because it's just become this hit. But if in year one you'd said to me, yeah, Japanese storytelling in Grahamstown, I'd say, yeah, that's not going to work. And that's the beauty of it. The stuff just happens and it takes off.
So in terms of development and networks that are created at the festival, is there anything that's like solid structures that, I mean, for a piece like that, where you're like, okay, we're going to put this in this hub?
Yeah, I think we know that for artists to bring work to Grahamstown, particularly those coming from out of Grahamstown, it's expensive. Yeah, there's transport, there's accommodation, there's food, they've got to eat.
There's paying you guys.
Come on, we're cheap. we can unpack that if you like. But so we know that it's not a small venture, and we know a lot of people, for them this is their thing. We also know a lot of artists. There's one artist I know that I won't name, but he says to me that in Grahamstown he makes his rent for the year. And he goes back to Cape Town and he's covered his whole rent for the year from his run in Grahamstown. But he's been here a couple of years and this is how he does it. So we know it's expensive. So what we try and do is add these other things to the festival, the non-financial benefits to being here. So a couple of years back we started this thing called the World Fringe Alliance. So there's now 9 fringe festivals from around the world. Los Angeles, New York, Grahamstown, Brighton, Edinburgh, Prague, Amsterdam, Perth and Adelaide. So we're in this alliance. And the reason for being is that we want to create these pathways for artists to travel between festivals. So it's now relatively easy for a South African show that does well here to go and perform in the Amsterdam Fringe, or to take their work to Australia, to Perth and
So is there a structure? I mean, you guys will obviously recognize, oh, this piece did well, and then you...
We don't make those choices. So this year, the head of the Brighton Fringe, for example, is going to be here. The head of the Amsterdam Fringe is going to be here, and they're going to be here looking for work. Last year we had about between 40 and 50 international producers who were here specifically to look for South African work that they could book for their festivals or theatres or institutions in other countries. And that doesn't happen at any other festival in South Africa, where it becomes the shopping ground. So yeah, people come and it costs a lot of money and hopefully they break even when they come and do a run in Grahamstown. But there's all these other things, and if they have a hit, then it will take off, and they'll go and do some amazing stuff elsewhere in the world. So we try and make that happen, and we try and make that work for artists. But finally, the power sits in the artists' hands, because they can present work, and if it's great, it'll do well. But if it's not so good, or if it doesn't have the appeal that the international market is looking for, then it's not going to do that well. So it's just one of those things that we have to sort of make up as we go along, but we try and create these opportunities for artists.
So what are some of the exciting shows that are on the lineup for this year?
Well, the only way I can answer that is for me to say these are the shows that I'm looking forward to, which is unfair because there's 700 kids in that program.
I know, right?
I don't know which is my favorite child. No, there's some stuff that I'm particularly looking forward to seeing. There's a play called Those You Pass on the Street. Now, it's done by an Irish company, and they've come up, they're based in Belfast, and it's about the struggles in Belfast and Sinn Féin. And the person who wrote it, Lawrence McCowan, was one of the hunger strikers with Bobby Sands, just before Bobby Sands died. And he, in fact, he wrote the play, and he's now going to be in Grahamstown as well to answer questions after the performance, which is a kind of engagement and dialogue that you only get at festivals like this. You get an opportunity for people to interact like that. So I'm really looking forward to that, because I think the story that he's got to tell is so resonant for South Africans at the moment. Having emerged from struggle, where are we now as a country, where are our heads at, how are people talking to each other or not talking to each other, all those kinds of issues are so pertinent. So I think that's a very important piece. I think it's going to be a very strong piece. The company that's put it together, the Kibosh Theatre Company, are renowned. They've got a global reputation of presenting great theatre. So to get them in Grahamstown, it's like, wow, this is going to be great. So that's something that I'm looking forward to. I'm a big music fan. I'm really looking forward to seeing the Muffins on the big stage.
Yeah, yes.
They came to Grahamstown a few years back. They were on the
2014.
Yeah.
Yes.
And okay, we've got a
female fans are spoken for.
Do you want to see the photographs? It's time to
We're
dance.
trying to get them in studio as well.
It should be easy. But they came, and they're one of our success stories, like the Soil were. They came onto the Fringe, relatively unknown at that stage, and they hadn't yet got the record deal. They came, performed on the Fringe. They got an award. They got one of the Standard Bank Ovation Awards on the Fringe that year. So we invited them back the next year, and they took part on the Arena program, which is that bridge between the Fringe and the Main. And now they've graduated, if you like, to the Main. So they're here. They met, and they're going to be on the Guy Butler stage in the Monument, which a couple of years back they were like, wow, this is
oh my God! So when are they on?
Toward the end of the festival, I think they were last Wednesday or Thursday or Friday, somewhere around there. So you've got to catch them. So I'm looking forward to seeing them. Another one of my favourite bands, a band called Hatchet Man, from Cape Town. They sound like Crosby, Stills and Nash, very chill, very bluesy kind of vibe. There's other show, Ntsiki Speaks, I think it's called.
Oh yeah, there's a buzz around that show. Buzz around that show. It's going to be the best show this year.
To be honest, I'm also looking forward to seeing AKA. The last time I saw him was I went to Opikopi last year, which is the big music festival in Northern.
Yeah.
And he was performing there, which is the first time I'd seen him live. Obviously, I knew music, but
for sure.
Seeing him live, and I was just completely blown away by him. His stage performance is incredible.
His confidence is beautiful,
big, yeah.
right?
Yeah, I mean, I did feel I was like the oldest guy there by some considerable amount. I felt like an off-duty policeman. So
well, you're the oldest guy here. If it makes you feel any better.
So he's also going to be in the Guy Butler Theatre, which is quite a formal environment. So it's going to be quite interesting because the audience is going to start off anyway seated. I don't think they're going to stay seated for long, but it's nice chairs and so. And then we're going to see what happens as the audience. It's not the symphony concert audience, but it's a really nice vibe and energy that we can see there. So there's lots of things that I'm looking for. And to be honest, I like the fact that South Africa's artists come to Grahamstown, they hang out here, they talk to each other, they share ideas. New partnerships are born here. Over a drink at the long table, suddenly sparks fly and people start getting into each other's creative spaces and partnerships happen. And that's what I like seeing more than anything else. It's this alchemy, this chemistry that happens in Grahamstown.
Previously, there's been concern over the diversity issue. How have you found ways?
Are you talking about on the program or the
on the program? All around. I mean, Grahamstown.
There's so many layers to that, and I think, of course, it's an issue. We don't want to feel like a European festival in South Africa, because we're not. We're a South African festival, and I think you can go through that program now, and I think the flavour is more South African than I'm going to stick my neck out here. I'm back into trouble. I think it's more South African than any other arts event in the country, just in terms of its mixture and. As you know, there's the Main and there's the Fringe. The Fringe is an open access platform. Anyone can come perform. They pay the registration fee, they commit to the venue hire, and they get a spot. It's probably one of the most democratic arts platforms globally, I think. Even a big Fringe like the Edinburgh, you have to go through, they call it open access, but actually a venue still has to agree to take you on board before you can get a space to perform in Edinburgh. Ours is genuinely, truly open access. As long as you apply before the deadline, you're not going to get turned away.
I wanted to get to that. I mean, what are the steps required for maybe an artist who's just...
I'll come to that in a second. Just on the diversity thing. So the Fringe has a life of its own, but I truly feel, and this is not, I'm not just saying this because I'm trying to spin it or anything, but I do think that if you look at that program now, I think 70%, 80% of it is by non-white South Africans, if I can put it like that.
Good, because we are in a non-white country.
Yeah, of course. and that gives you a richness and a texture in the program that I think is important. Otherwise, it's why do it? And I think that's true across the Main and the Fringe. So I think the flavour is absolutely there. The other big debate is around the role of the festival in a city like Grahamstown. We're in a poor city. We're in a city that doesn't have...
It's quite segregated too.
Deeply divided. There's a physical, geographical line that you can draw.
And Grahamstown.
East-west. And it's a problem that we obviously live with and we grapple with, like everyone living in the city deals with and grapples with. Where I get slightly uncomfortable is that people sort of, because the festival is so visible and so big and it comes into town, we punch above our weight in terms of the brand, but we only employ 8 or 9 people. You know, we're a tiny organization, we're an NGO. If it's a really, really good year, we won't make a loss that year. Otherwise, we make losses. So we don't have resources as an organization. But because we appear to be so big, people say to us, well, we should be fixing the problems of Grahamstown. To which my response is, we're here for 11 days a year. There's 354 other days that we need to be turning our attention to, because that's the reality for people. It's not just the party, it's everything else below the surface. So that's why we've run these other projects, the Creative City project, the Mazwai choir concert that we've just had, the art teachers post that we funded in Ntsiki Secondary School, the mural project around town. We do all these other things because this is our heartland, this is our home. So we try and do those things in as much as we can within our resources. But I do think it's unfair for people to expect the festival to wave a magic wand and solve the problems of Grahamstown. The problems of Grahamstown are deep. They're deep and they're serious, and you can't expect one NGO for once a year to solve them. We can turn the spotlight on them, we can talk about them, we can use it as an opportunity to surface these problems. But at some stage I'm going to sort of lose it a bit with a Johannesburg journalist who comes in, parachutes in here for one day, tells us what we're doing wrong, and then parachutes out after 2 weeks. You know, let's talk about it as Grahamstown, because I think that's where the solutions will be found. Yeah, it's cool. Joburg, Cape Town, come tell us what you think we're doing wrong, but we're gonna talk about it.
Okay, just speaking of that, what can be done for free during the National Arts Festival?
A lot. So there's the craft market, obviously, that you can wander around and look at the craft. What we tried to do a couple of years back, we encouraged fringe artists particularly to start something called the Free Fringe. So what it is it's you come and perform, the audience is coming, they don't pay up front, but we encourage audiences to make a donation after the show. And you pay a donation, it depends how guilty you're feeling, what the guilt trip that the artist puts you on.
Okay.
So there's the whole Free Fringe, is the first thing. So a lot of the productions, I'd say 30 to 40% of the productions on the Fringe take part in the Free Fringe. So their first performance is free, and you can go along as an audience member. We've got the evening Sundowner concerts up at the Monument every evening. It's an hour of free performance. You can sit there with your family and friends. You can get a drink if you want or not. And you can watch a procession of some of the top artists from the Fringe doing little excerpts from their shows. They use it as a way of marketing their productions, and as an audience member you get to hang out and see that. The Finger Festival is a project that we have over the last couple of years supported more and more, and we still work with them a lot. That's a free stage, and there's engagement sessions, there's discussion sessions and so on. And then of course on the last weekend there's 2 massive street parades that take place on the Saturday and the Sunday, which culminate in free performances in the Saturday at Mickey Ely Stadium and on Sunday at Rusty Arch. So there's a lot going on for free. And then also on the last Sunday, all the Fringe productions that are being staged on that last Sunday take part in something called the 50% Fringe. So it's not free, but it's 50% off the ticket price. So there's a lot going on, and we would encourage people. And if you look at the program, there's lots of public art and street theatre as well, which is all free as well. So you can probably keep yourself pretty busy for 10 days and not pay anything because there's a lot going on.
Let's do a little bit of music. I feel like
I need a break.
Some water. I actually wanna
deep breath. Okay.
Yeah.
Come back
to it. You know, the importance of giving back.
You know, we're very conscious of the environment that we operate in, and one of my frustrations is there's so much that goes on beneath the surface that we need to get better as the festival. We need to get better in talking about. So, for example, we employ about 400 staff members during festival. For about 75-80% of those, it is the only job they're going to have the entire year. So it's their only source of income. The bulk of those are from Grahamstown. So they work for the festival as box office staff, as front of house cashiers, as cleaners, as somewhere within this festival organisation. But that's a massive contribution to employment in Grahamstown. Every other festival in the world, and I stand corrected, but pretty much every other festival in the world uses a big volunteer corps. So they have people who volunteer to work for them. We've taken the decision that because of the levels of unemployment we have in the city, it would be immoral to ask people to work for free. So we don't. So even if our salaries aren't great, we believe that it's important to pay something. And so that's the position that we take. So it's a big part of what we do, but also throughout the year, you know, this Creative City project that I mentioned earlier, It's a partnership between ourselves, Makana Municipality, Rhodes University, Sarah Bartman District Municipality, and we're trying to pool resources and establish Grahamstown as South Africa's creative capital, as a place where creativity happens and becomes a lever for economic opportunity for people. So, for example, we look at the moment, we're talking about this new production that we are going to be producing using Grahamstown cast, Grahamstown set builders, Grahamstown costume makers, which we're then going to tour around the country and perform outside of festival time completely, as a means of creating opportunity for the people involved with the production. So it's projects like that, and I could speak for hours about these little ideas that we have, and we're constantly trying to sort of pull them together, because they are important. And you talk about sustainability, these are the things of sustain. Because every year we get asked, why are you still in Grahamstown? Why is South Africa's National Arts Festival in Grahamstown? Should you be in Johannesburg or Cape Town or Durban or somewhere? To which my response is, that would completely change the nature of the festival.
Yeah, no, it belongs in Grahamstown.
Completely. There's very few other cities in South Africa that could possibly do it.
You can't even think they can make their own.
Exactly.
Grahamstown National Arts Festival did their thing, and
Yeah.
can we respect it because it is a global event.
It is, and the economic impact of the festival on the province is 340 million rand a year.
What?
Now
Does that
that's
feed into Gini though?
90 million of that is here.
Okay.
So that the way they calculate that, and it's done by the Rhodes Economics Department, so it must be right. The way that is how much money gets spent in the city or province as a direct result of the festival. So it's money that wouldn't be spent here if it were not for the festival. So it's not people just buying festival tickets, or it's money spent on petrol, rental cars, hotels, the hospitality industry, and this is true worldwide. When a festival like this happens, the hospitality and tourism industries are the ones who benefit most. And the effect of that is, if you own a guest house or a bar or a restaurant, you're going to be staffing up, because you now need, and obviously because you want to not have to pay transport and accommodation, you're going to look locally to employ your staff. So that's where a lot of those benefits flow from. So apart from the 400 people that we employ directly, a good couple of thousand more find employment elsewhere. At bars and restaurants, or at the laundry. You know, all the costumes need to be laundered every single day. All those little things. When we buy paint to paint stages, or whatever the case might be, that has to come from somewhere. And our procurement policy is that we buy local first. If we can't find it in Grahamstown, we go to Port Elizabeth or East London. If we can't find it there, then we only look elsewhere. So most of our money, that program that we print, it costs about R1 million to print, and we do that in the Eastern Cape. It's all printed in Port Elizabeth. It probably would be a little bit cheaper if we did it in Cape Town or Joburg, but then we're going to mess the planet up by driving it down here. But it's just part of what we do, and we need to do these things. And it's all those little things that happen beneath the surface that don't often get spoken about.
Before we let you go, Tony, I just want to know, what does it take to build such a thing? I mean, how did you guys get here? How long did it take? What did you have to do?
The festival started in 1974, so it's 42 years now. So I wasn't here at the beginning, even though I'm the oldest person in the room, apparently. What it takes is a lot of passion, and a lot of the time we are flying on fumes. We don't have petrol in the tank, we're just going on the fumes that we can smell. There are a lot of extremely good people who work for this festival, either full-time or who come in once a year. And they do it because it's got the special place in people's hearts, and they're prepared to come down and do it. And the accommodation is not always the greatest, and it's cold, and there's all, but you know what? It's completely unlike the head of the managing director of the Brighton Fringe has been to this Fringe festival every year for the past 7 or 8. He will not miss it. And he runs the biggest festival in England. He could go anywhere in the world with this time of year.
But he comes to Grahamstown.
And he comes here because he knows the work on stage is going to be great. And I haven't even begun to talk about that. I know you're going to speak to Ishmael, so he can go into some of that. But the work that we tour from here elsewhere in the world flies that South African flag, and they win awards. So when we take South African shows to the Amsterdam Fringe, they are going to win the best of the Fringe that year. We know that. They've done so for the last 4 or 5 years.
Wow.
So it's the kind of passion that keeps this thing moving forward. My job is to keep my hands off the moving parts, and to make sure I don't get in the way, because it's going to happen anyway, with or without me. So it's just making sure that everyone is there and happy and well fed, and we just get it done. So it's passion. The people who've been working for this, who were working for the festival before I got here, and will be working for it after I leave, they know this beast inside out way more than I ever will, and they pull it off because they're really, really good at what they do.
Thank you so much. for taking your Sunday evening to come chat to us.
I'm now going to go and meet the 200 technicians who've just arrived in town. We've got the technicians briefing, which is the moment for me when festival starts. So we've faced with these 200 people, and they've all just got off the bus. They're all excited, and then the hard work starts for them tomorrow. So I'm off to do that now. So it's been nice starting with you.
Oh, it's been lovely. I can't wait.
I also can't wait.
I know. That was the CEO of the National Arts Festival. You're still on the free word drop. It's 18:34, and coming up, we're speaking to Ishmael Muhammad. Yeah, let's do this.
89.7 FM.